Episode 1 of Yu Yu Hakusho starts with Urameshi Yusuke's body being taken to the hospital after an accident. His childhood friend, Yukamura Kiko, rushes to the scene and Yusuke's spirit realizes that he was having an out-of-body experience because he had already died. A flashback from 4 hours before the incident shows a roundworm monster escaping from the underworld while Yusuke and Keiko are in school. Kiko finds Yusuke smoking on the rooftop and asks him to stop doing that. The teacher catches Yusuke beating the school bullies up as he tries to save the victim. The teacher punishes Yusuke and he goes back home. Yusuke is berated by his mother at home as well and he leaves to go out to get some air. On the street, his arch-nemesis Kawabara Kazuma brings in his friends as they try and fight Yusuke. An already irritated Yusuke beats Kazuma and his friends up to a pulp, leaving Kazuma further agitated. Kazuma then arrives at the ramen shop where Kiko works. Yusuke eats ramen when Kiko arrives from school. She argues with Yusuke for not defending himself in front of the teacher and asks him to die out of frustration. Meanwhile, the roundworm monster possesses a truck driver and forces him to drive onto the road that Yusuke is on. Yusuke leaves the restaurant after his fight with Kiko and notices that the truck driver is about to crash into a little boy. He pushes the boy away and ends up getting run over by the truck. The narrator states that the human and the demon world were connected in the past where the yokai attacked humans who came to the human world. After the spirit world drew a boundary separating the two worlds, Yusuke's spirit notices his body being taken away in an ambulance when Boten, the Grim Reaper, shows up. She tells Yusuke that he was an evil person by the standards of the book, which means he could be sent to hell. However, Boten tells him that his death was not anticipated because his act of saving the young boy was odd for his personality. Boten takes Yusuke to the spirit world to meet her boss, Koma. While Yusuke and Boten take the trip, Koma sees a play-by-play recap of the recently deceased humans' lives and sends them to heaven and hell based on their actions. Koma tells Yusuke that he will be reincarnated if he agrees to be a spirit detective for the spirit world. Yusuke learns that his duties as a spirit detective would be to stop the yokai that are invading the human world to cause trouble. He tells Yusuke about the roundworm monster that turns into yokai and asks Yusuke to go find it. Yusuke refuses the offer because he is certain that his human body is not dead yet. Meanwhile, Seikyo is the owner of several casinos. He meets a guest there, Mr. Gonzo Tarukane, and pitches an investment deal to him. Seikyo tells Mr. Gonzo about a deep pit, the one that the roundworm monster came from. On the other hand, Boten asks Yusuke to visit his funeral and see what his mourners thought of him. There, Yusuke sees the little boy whose life he saved. He hears the boy tell his mother that he was waiting for Yusuke to wake up so that he could thank Yusuke for saving his life. Yusuke also sees Kazuma emotionally at his funeral. Yusuke sees Kiko and his mother crying over his death, which makes him rethink his decisions. He sees Kiko mourning his death in her room and agrees to work as a spirit detective for the spirit world. At the same time, the same roundworm monster that killed Yusuke enters the body of the boy who was being bullied by Yusuke's classmates. The roundworm monster starts a fire in Yusuke's house and makes the victim beat the bullies up. Kazuma and his friends witness the incident and get worried. Komomo informs Yusuke that he had to urgently possess his own body, which was inside the burning house. He also asks Yusuke to save his classmates who are being attacked by a roundworm monster. Kiko goes inside the house and tries to carry Yusuke's body outside. Yusuke's spirit goes inside as well when Komomo sees his valor. Komomo resurrects Yusuke, who brings Kiko out. Yusuke then fights the roundworm monster who is soon going to turn into a yokai. Komomo asks Yusuke to channel his spirit energy to kill the monster. Kirino, the boy possessed by the monster, grows more and more aggressive, which worries Komomo and Boten. After a long and tiring fight, Yusuke ends up exorcising the monster by using his spirit energy and Kirino is saved. Yusuke crushes the monster with his bare hands. Kazuma wakes up after the fight to see Yusuke carrying Kirino home. The next morning, Yusuke's mom and Keiko hug him, revealing how happy he is to see them. In the spirit world, Komomo tells Boten that he is worried because Yusuke is going to fight 3 very powerful yokai. The episode ends with the 3 yokai, Kurama, Hai, and Goki, demonstrating their respective skills by using the 3 magical artifacts stolen from the spirit world. Episode 2 of Yu Yu Hakusho starts at a playground where Goki steals the souls of little kids in the Orb of Boss, one of the 3 objects Koma was looking for. On the other hand, Koma tries to help Yusuke use his spirit energy and channel its power like a gun, a move that he calls Spirit Gun. However, Yusuke is not able to demonstrate the move in front of Koma, which infuriates him. He reminds Yusuke that he needs to work fast to get to all 3 yokai that are in the human world. Just then, Konma, Yusuke, and Boten learn about the incident from the park where the souls of the little kids were stolen from their bodies. Yusuke and Boten visit the kids admitted to the hospital, and Yusuke is angered by the act. He promises to make Goki pay and decides to go to attack the yokai without fully preparing himself for the attack. Kazuma is also at the hospital visiting Kurino, who is suffering because of yokai. On their way out, they run into Kazuma, and surprisingly, Kazuma can see Boten. Yusuke ends up telling Kazuma the truth about the spirit world and the yokai from the demon world, underworld, that were invading the human world. Boten drags him out, but the information leaves Kazuma thinking. Boten and Yusuke try to understand Goki's motive behind the attack and try to come up with a plan to find him. Yusuke gets hungry and visits the ramen place Kiko works at. There he runs into the boy whose life he had saved. The boy appears worried, and his mother tells Yusuke that he is worried for his friends whose souls were stolen from the nearby park. Yusuke learns all about Goki's location and goes there with Boda. He spots Goki leaving with the orb and chases after him. Goki leaves the orb on the ground as bait and attacks Yusuke when he grabs it. Goki takes his real form and fights Yusuke in the parking lot near the garden. Just then, another yokai named Kurama shows up at the lot and watches them from afar. Yusuke tries his best to stop the giant, but Goki is unstoppable. Yusuke tries to use the spirit gun move, but he is not able to channel its powers. However, the little boy whose life Yusuke saved shows up and tries to help Yusuke. Goki gets greedy and steals the boy's soul. Instead of putting it in the orb, Goki threatens to eat the soul of the little boy, which infuriates Yusuke. He jumps on Goki's neck and makes the spirit gun move inside his mouth, knocking him out instantly. Goki dies, and the orb releases all the souls of the children he had collected in them. The souls return to the children's bodies while Kurama sees what Yusuke has done. That night, Mr. Gonzo Terikane visits Yukina, a young female yokai that he had kidnapped for his entertainment. Yukina is trapped and tortured in a cage where Terikane tries to collect her tears of ice by trying to make her cry more. Terikane leaves and asks his men to sell the tear of ice at a high price while talking about the deal that Sekio had pitched. We then see Hiei, who has the shadow sword with him. He strikes himself on the forehead and is immediately transformed into an E-class demon. He later gets surgery to turn the hole into a Jagan third eye. The next morning, Kazuma sees Yusuke with Boten and overhears them talking about the third artifact. Boten tells Yusuke that the third yokai was Kurama, who possessed the Mirror of Darkness, aka the Forlorn Hope. She adds that anyone who uses the mirror will have to sacrifice their life in exchange for one wish, no matter how big it is. Yusuke runs into Kurama on the street and realizes he is the person watching his fight with Goki. Yusuke follows after Kurama and arrives at a hospital. There he sees Kurama visiting his sick mother, who has a few months left to live. In private, Kurama tells Yusuke that he was a yokai who had entered a pregnant woman's body years ago and had been born as a hybrid human-yokai child. He reveals that the woman had taken good care of him, and now he was only returning the favor by sacrificing his life. He asks Yusuke to let him use the mirror to save his mother's life. Boten gets emotional after hearing Kurama's story from afar, while Yusuke rethinks Kuruma's situation at the ramen shop. Yusuke has a chat with Kiko there and realizes that it would not be right for them to judge Kurama just because of what the world says about him, but to trust his actions. Boten rushes to the ramen shop and asks Yusuke to rush. She tells him that he needs to act quickly, as it is a full moon night and Kurama will use the Mirror of Darkness that night. On his way out, Yusuke runs into Kazuma, who tries to stop him from saving a yokai's life. Kazuma reminds Yusuke what the yokai had done to Kurino. However, Yusuke brushes him off and goes along to save Kurama. Kazuma follows after Yusuke and goes to the hospital as well. There, Kurama stands by his mother's hospital bed and makes his wish. However, Yusuke tries to go inside and stop him from doing so. The two are transported to the underworld, and Yusuke tells Kurama what the death of a child feels like to a mother. He tells Kurama all about his recent experience with death and his mother's reaction to it. Yusuke offers half of his own life along with Kurama's to save his mother's life. After the wish is granted, both Kurama and Yusuke are brought back to the human world. Kazuma apologizes to Yusuke for his mistake, and the two enemies decide to grab a bowl of ramen to end their enmity. At the same time, Hiei, who possesses another tear of ice, uses his Jagan to trace the location of Yukina's tear of ice. He manages to find Terikane's driver, who is on his way to sell off the tear. He steals the tear from him, which infuriates Terikane. He decides to agree to send Yukina over to him. He calls Sekio and decides to terminate his contract with the latter, but Sekio asks him to come over to his place to negotiate. The episode ends with elder and younger Toguro, an S-class demon, visiting Sakyo. Episode 3 of Yu Yu Hakusho starts with Yusuke following along the path that Konma and Boten tell him to find Hiei. Yusuke asks for the Shadow Sword, also known as the Conjuring Blade, back. The two start fighting, wherein Yusuke tries to use the spirit gun on Haig but notices that the latter is much faster than him. Haig leaves Yusuke alone. At the same time, Terracane goes to Kubikukuri Island to Sakyo's house. There he brings Yakina along with him for Sakyo to keep along with the other yokai on his island. There, Sakyo introduces Terracane to the two other investors of their new project, which happens to be a club. Sakyo films a battle between two yokai, younger Toguro and another yokai creature. Younger Toguro ends up killing the other yokai in a single punch, which leaves Terracane shocked. Sakyo asks for Yakina to be taken inside, but when her cage is brought in, Terracane notices that her cage is empty. The guards rush around the island looking for Yakina while one of the guards tries to fly her out. However, Elder Toguro catches them fleeing. The guard tries to shoot at Elder Toguro, but the bullets do him no harm. In return, Elder Toguro kills the guard and takes Yakina back inside. Terracane enjoys the fact that Yakina has shed tens of ice tears, which would probably make him a very wealthy man. At the same time, Sakyo shows Terracane how he and Yusuke were fighting each other outside his mansion. Sakyo offers a battle between the different yokai species for the entertainment of the members of the Black Book Club. To prepare Yusuke for his battle against the other more powerful yokai, Boten asks Yusuke to go train with Master Genkai, an ancient female fighter. Boten tells Yusuke that Genkai is someone who helps fighters harness their spiritual energy to win fights. Kazuma overhears their conversation yet again and asks to join Yusuke on his training trip. Genkai sees Kazuma's persistent attitude and agrees to train him alongside Yusuke. Despite several attempts at trying to channel the spirit energy to stand upside down on two fingers, Yusuke fails. Genkai fights Yusuke to show him how incompetent he is to fight her when she isn't even using all of her strength. She asks Yusuke to stop complaining and start working hard on himself. On the other hand, Kazuma tries to break a stone using a wooden stick on Genkai's orders. He continues to try without being disappointed, and Boten praises his commitment to the training, which makes Yusuke jealous. Genkai takes Yusuke inside for more practice. Kurama meets Hiei and asks him to give the conjuring knife to Yusuke. He agrees to help Hiei find the person he was looking for, which turns out to be Yakina. Hiei dismisses Kurama's comments. At the same time, Sakyo uses the pit to try and connect the underworld with the human world. Younger Toguro tells Sakyo that he needs to go to the demon world because he has to do something there. 14 days go by as Yusuke trains with Genkai, but he is not able to channel the spirit energy within himself. Genkai is disappointed in Yusuke's performance and tells Boten all about it. Boten conveys the message to Kazuma as well. That night, Yusuke sees Kazuma practicing with a wooden stick relentlessly and wonders what is going on in his mind. Kazuma is determined to beat the evil yokai as well as be more powerful than Yusuke. He ends up using the wooden stick with determination and manages to channel the spirit energy, breaking the rock. This prompts Yusuke to try harder and uses the spirit energy to stand upside down on the tip of his index finger. Genkai is impressed with Yusuke and teaches him to shoot the spirit gun with his finger at his command. On the other hand, younger Toguro recognizes something and decides to visit Genkai. Genkai senses younger Toguro's arrival and sends Yusuke and Kazuma back to fight the yokai. She gives Yusuke her most powerful weapon, the spirit orb, as she bids the boys a farewell. That night, younger Toguro arrives at Genkai's shrine and they recall their past romance. Genkai calls younger Toguro a cheater for becoming a yokai, just to look like his younger self. Meanwhile, younger Toguro calls Genkai old and challenges her to a fight. On the other hand, Yusuke has a meal at the ramen restaurant and sees Hiei kidnapping Kiko. As soon as he walks out of the door, Boten alerts Kazuma about the kidnapping and the two rush to help Yusuke. Yusuke fights Hiei with all of his might to save Kiko, but Kurama stops them. Kurama tells Yusuke that the person who kidnapped Kiko was one of Sakyo's yokai who had disguised as Hiei to instigate Yusuke. He also tells Yusuke that Sakyo has kidnapped his fraternal twin sister, Yakina, as well. The trio decide to save the two girls by accepting her invitation to participate in the Dark Tournament Saga, a competition to find the most powerful yokai group. Kazuma joins the trio and immediately argues with Hiei as they take the boat to Sakyo's island. The episode ends with younger Toguro killing Jekko after their fight.